The big story tonight, a major winter storm crossing California as we speak. It's brought heavy snow and strong winds to the Sierra and steady rain for most of the day to the Bay Area. This was the downpour in San Bruno this morning during the commute. The storm sent a pine tree toppling onto power lines in Oakland. It broke a pair of poles, cut power to about a dozen customers. No major outages to report at this hour. And there was plenty of work for the windshield wipers and storm drains in San Francisco. Streets got soaked. So was anybody unlucky enough to be caught outside without an umbrella.
Here, the driving is treacherous. Tractor trailers have been banned much of the day on I-80, and the U.S. Forest Service has issued an avalanche watch for the backcountry around Lake Tahoe. KPX5's Len Ramirez live along Highway 17 with the latest on conditions in the Santa Cruz mountains. Len?
Well, Veronica, the sun came out for just a brief time this afternoon, drying things out just a little bit, but the roads are still very wet. There's a lot of runoff and things are still pretty slick here on Highway 17. Earlier today, though, this highway was getting pounded by rain, leading to many accidents, and in fact, it looked a little like a demolition derby out here. Emergency crews answered the calls, and there were plenty of them in the Santa Cruz mountains, like this single BMW rollover on the curvy and rain-soaked lanes of Highway 17. As bad as it looks, the driver walked away from it. Another crash was just bad luck. A tree branch broke off into the path of this car. The driver was also lucky and shrugged it off. Then a car with several passengers on board collided with a pickup. The passengers appeared to be okay, but all the wrecks closed lanes and backed up traffic. It was treacherous driving even on smaller highways where sporadic but strong downpours caused some flooding. This section of Highway 9 near Felton was nearly wiped out by a landslide last winter. Today, its single lane was partially covered in water. Santa Cruz County road crews were monitoring streams and clearing blockages at key bridges and culverts.
We're just keeping the water flowing.
The rain was mixed with fog and gusty winds, strong enough to uproot trees. On Graham Hill Road, a large tree took down power lines and closed the road for hours. Power was cut to dozens of homes in unincorporated northeast Santa Cruz.
When the soil gets wet around here, the big trees topple.
And more trees are falling. We're just getting word of more trees falling on Highway 9 near the town of Felton, also bringing down power lines in that area. Veronica, PG&E says about 5,000 customers have had their power affected by these falling trees and down lines since the storm began yesterday.
What a mess. All right, Len Ramirez, we appreciate that. Thank you. And the North Bay was the first area to face the brunt of the storm. KPX5 Emily Turner, she is live in Mill Valley for us. Emily?
Well, we're getting blown around out here because it is awfully gusty, and we're freezing because it's awfully chilly. But if you look over my shoulder, it looks like we might be getting wet again soon. And as far as the reservoirs are concerned, that's good news. It soggied the roadways and made for a miserable morning commute.
Traffic was horrible. The traffic was utterly horrible.
But while today's several inches of rain made a mess of Marin roadways, Goodman's Hardware made sure they didn't make a mess of its Mill Valley store.
The pumps were doing their job. They were end up pushing most of the water out. We had a little bit of the water coming in, but it honestly wasn't much.
These sandbags outside the door helped too. But despite the deluge, it won't help the North Marin Water District reservoir. At least not yet.
This inch and a half, we're going to need to build back up to saturate the ground. And then once the ground's saturated, we'll get the runoff.
And you can see exactly what he's talking about here at Stafford Lake, which is North Marin Water District's only reservoir. This is how dry the ground is, even after all of that rain we had. And it has to resaturate before the water can ever make it into that reservoir. That's because February was so dry. Currently, Stafford Lake is at 40% of capacity. But General Manager Drew McIntyre says he's a lake half full kind of guy when it comes to this year's outlook.
The National Weather Service is showing that not only is this week supposed to be wet, but it's also showing that the projection for week 2 is above normal rainfall. So that's good news for us. We didn't see that at all in February, and it's looking good so far for March. We can't predict the future, but we're hopeful.